think there's anyone else coming.
Hello and welcome to the East Lampeter Township Public Meeting. All participants are now informed that this meeting is being recorded. This meeting is also being offered virtually utilizing Zoom, which is a cloud-based platform for remote video and audio conferencing. The Zoom application is free to the public. The general public is therefore able to join the meeting by connection through the internet or by calling in by phone. The public is also able to observe the meeting on the Township's YouTube channel. Please continue to check the Township website calendar for any updates related to these public meetings. Agendas for these public meetings will also be available on the Township's website. Please be reminded that this meeting is being video and audio recorded and will be posted to the Township's YouTube channel for viewing. The meeting will now proceed with the chairman calling the meeting to order and identifying all other members present in the meeting room and those joining the meeting via Zoom. The chairman will then confirm those members joining by Zoom can be heard.
Okay, welcome to the February meeting of the East Lampeter Sewer Authority. And present we have myself, Rick Robinson, Vinny Patel. On Zoom we have members Brent Stahl, Susan Fred Clark. Representing HRG is Matt Seachy, the Township, Tara Hitchens, Charlie Thomas, and Ralph Hutchison. Can you guys hear us on Zoom?
I can hear.
Can you hear Fred?
We can hear Fred.
What's he saying? Mute, unmute.
We can't hear you, Fred.
We don't have him on mute. I mean, the mute sign was up there.
That would actually put him into
In the mute.
Fred used signs, hand signals.
This is an ongoing thing with Fred here. He can hear you laugh.
Now can you hear me?
Gotcha. Thank you, Fred.
Okay, now we're good.
Okay. I invite you to join us in the pledge of the American flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we had the minutes for probably 3 weeks now. We got them pretty early this time. I mean, unless there's any additions or corrections, the stand approved as written. Treasurer's report, Vinny's going to give that. Todd's not here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, Treasurer's report, account balance for the authority, $4,817.18. The bills we have for the authority is totaling today's date $5,879.00. It includes bills for the members plus HRG.
Requisitions.
If three requisitions. The first is requisition number 03-634. This is payable to Desco Design and Construction Incorporated for the Stauffer Run Pump Station Improvements, contract 21-1. Their application for payment number 4. It's in the amount of $75,430.89. Next is requisition number 03-635. This is payable to Garden Spot Electric Incorporated for the Stauffer Run Pump Station Improvements, contract 41-2, electrical construction. AFP number 7 in the amount of $46,532.17. And the last is requisition number 03-636, which is payable to Herbert McGrivick Inc. for the Stauffer Run Pump Station Construction Administration, the amount of $5,974.
Okay, looking for a motion to pay the bills and requisitions for sanitary sewer.
I'll make a motion that we pay the bills and requisitions.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? So moved.
Self-approved, it just needs signed.
Okay, stormwater.
Stormwater, we have bill totaling $1,700. And the account balance for stormwater, $940,000, 829.81 is the balance in that account.
Any bills? Or is that what you just
That's
said?
what I did.
I was distracted. Motion to pay the bills for stormwater.
I'll make a motion, we pay the bills.
I'll second that.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Under old business, under sanitary sewer, Stauffer Run upgrade.
The construction of the work is coming to completion of that project. Startup of pump number 2 occurred on January 18th, and pump number 3 occurred on February 8th. No issue with pumps running. We did conduct a substantial completion inspection this past Monday. The list of items to be developed there and finalized. The items themselves are pretty minor. It's filling in conduits like penetrations, box, and a spring busted on one of the balcony. So a couple other things, mostly minor items. Pumps have been running and working well. So that list is going to be finalized and issued to the contractors for them to look at. Final completion date for the project is March 11th. And in the review report, there is photos on page 2 and 3. Show pictures of the newly installed pump with the new flow meter on page 2. And on page 3 is the new motor control center, or MCC, well, some of the other electrical gear, and the pump control panel. And the pump control panel is just to the left of the single port. Sure, if any authority members want to stop out, take a visit, I'm sure staff happy to accommodate that. Take a look at it. Everyone's very pleased with the status and work the contractor's done. I think they've done a good job. Project.
Good. Sounds good.
Have you noticed that suppliers are able to deliver product now on time, or are we still having that delay?
I think there's still a delay with the electrical gear. I'm hearing that on other projects in our quarterly city partners meetings. It's being reported by the other partners as well, and that's stuff we're still seeing. Same with generators. We're pricing some stuff out now on some other jobs, and a generator is still a year out. But some of the other stuff is.
Are they all custom made, those generators? Or why would that be?
I don't think, there's accessories you can get added to them, but I don't think they're that custom made. I think they're very specific. The motor control systems are custom made, but they're made with standard parts to assemble. But I've heard like there's a certain components there, like they get 95% of the stuff. If it's that last 5% they need, it's just a challenge. So I would anticipate, hopefully by next month's meeting, we probably have the latest application for payment if they get all the work. That they need. Otherwise, your April meeting, get this one closed out.
Okay. DFA.
So, the Pennsylvania Commonwealth Financing Authority, they've issued a contract for the COVID-19 ARPA H2O PA grant for the authority for $382,000 that they awarded for the authority's capital improvement plan projects. Conditions of the grant are can be used for eligible project costs through September 30th, 2026. And it's subject to various provisions of the grant, but that's the sunset date of when the money needs to be spent by. Because the grant doesn't fund all of the authority's proposed projects, we've checked with CFA, and they said you can pick which projects or which projects you want to apply that grant money towards, and submit paperwork back to CFA, which basically would phase your capital improvement plan project. That way, you identify which projects you're going to do now, which you're going to do in the future, what that timing may be. And by phasing the work, it allows the remaining phases to be protected and available if funding is pursued through CFA at a later date and time. So there will be some paperwork that need to go to CFA for that, and requests submitted to CFA for that scope reduction, and HRG can assist with that task. The most important step right now is if the authority wants to accept the grant, that should be done at this meeting, and a motion to accept that because there's a 45-day count. There's a 45 calendar day deadline, which is February 23rd. And if that's the case, then discuss which projects the authority would like to proceed with. And in the engineer's report, I put a list of the projects that were previously submitted to CFA that were under consideration or proposed to have the grant money associated with. The grant itself is basically provides for 66% of the project cost. There's a 2/3, 1/3 match requirement. So the minimum project cost will be $573. They'll be able to use the full $900.
For one job, I mean, if we spread it out over a couple of different jobs, we could, I
You
mean,
could exceed that, right?
gotcha.
So there is this page. There's a list of the projects with their estimated costs that we put together back in December 2022. And at that time, those projects included Oak Pump Station 1, I&I investigation and capital repairs, Buffalo and Route 30, that's Watson Road, asbestos cement, sewer main CIPP lining, Willow Road, replacement and stream protection, Stoutland Pump Station, wet well lining, Oaks 1 pump station elimination, and Oaks 2 pump station elimination. They're not in particular order of priority or rankings. It's just
maybe Matt already said this, but the authority's match would include the pre-construction costs to design, permit, that sort of thing. Not that you necessarily have enough to cover all of the necessary match, but at least that would go toward the match.
Is there any reason we wouldn't accept this money?
I mean, from my perspective, I don't think so. As long as, we can identify, the best way to use it out of the projects. I think it makes sense to,
We don't have to decide that right now, do we? I mean, but it has to be done. I mean, obviously.
right, I think, it's, in my mind, it's sort of part of deciding to accept the money to say, yeah, we've got projects that it makes sense to use that money for. And we'll figure out exactly which ones now or in the future, but,
I think previous discussions were, the Oaks Pump Station eliminations is one that there's a payback associated with that because of the reduced staff time associated with this pump station and operation and maintenance costs.
So how much is that project total?
So the Oaks Pump Station 1 elimination was estimated at 1.2 million. And the Oaks Pump Station 2 elimination was estimated at 361,000.
so yeah, we think Oaks 2 is a logical project to use this for. And there's enough to do that project. There's not enough to do Oaks 1. So at least Oaks 2, I think, would make sense to have that be a part of what you do. There's a little bit more money than that in the grant than that project, but assuming these costs are going to come in close to that amount. So
What, maybe I misunderstood something here, but I thought it would have to be maximum 2/3 of the cost of the project. The grant money would be used for.
So the grant itself is not for like the construction cost. The grant would fund 2/3 of the cost of the project up to the grant amount. So, there's a match, I should say, there's a project. The grant fund $382,000 of project cost. But that's intended basically to be used for construction dollars. And the authority or the CFA says they also want the awarded entities to also contribute money. So some of that money that they're contributing can be used for your engineering dollars, some of your administrative costs, other things. And depending upon your project costs, can also be used for construction if the total cost of the project exceeds the grant.
the line that's in there with stuff run well. We didn't line as part of the project.
We did not do. And that's really at least when this was considered, it was thought of. It was, can someone come in with basically a co-star's contract and come in and apply to the lower end that's there.
So you could do Oaks 2 and what? Oaks. Oaks 2. So take a lot of stress away from that station and set it right. Now, utility, but it was there.
I think that's what us as an authority is looking for, is the township's, ideas of what is most pressing, or should be done in order. So, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, that's what, I think I'd be looking for a motion to accept the money for the Oaks 2 project.
Which one, Hutch, do you think would be most effective? You're thinking the wet well lining and Oaks pumps to do those?
Oaks number 2, I think would be my first choice.
Okay.
And then assuming that there is additional money to be used, then yeah, I'd look at the wet well mining and stuff. That's the second.
Think there's probably a third project.
You think?
Is at least, I mean, based upon these numbers, because I think you need a project cost that's up around the $561,000. So.
See, that's what my point earlier.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't make sense to me what we were talking about being 2/3 of the cost of these projects. So, yeah, we'd almost have to approve another project there.
Yeah, you probably then have to look at the Hobson Road asbestos cement lining
Yep.
as the next option.
That's gonna be $530-some thousand, and,
Yeah.
and I think that would get us close to the 2/3 for sure.
And Matt, you don't think we need to eliminate Oaks 1 along with Oaks 2 as a project, do we? We can do it separate, right? As far as
You can do those separately. I mean, they're 2 separate pump stations. By eliminating Oaks 2, you pull the flow away from Oaks 1. Oaks 2 is a much newer station age-wise than Oaks 1, just based upon development age. So, Oaks 1 does have older equipment in there associated with, but doesn't necessarily mean they can't be maintained and upgraded or replaced as needed either. But you are going to be taking less flow away from Oaks 1 as well with the elimination of Oaks 2.
And the conceptual solution to eliminating Oaks 2 and Oaks 1 are completely independent of one another. There's no other relationship. Once the force main is eliminated out of Oaks 2, then that gravity flow goes a completely different direction than Oaks 1.
in staff time, we run out there for different situations and pump replacements and other repair.
Yeah, future costs, absolutely, all, electric and everything else.
Anytime we can go gravity, I think that's the way to go. It just eliminates that opportunity for a pump to go down or something to get clogged and back up stuff, so.
Yeah, the cost of maintenance and you're paying for emergency generators, we actually have a water service out there. They're small bills, but still eliminates chemicals.
I think, Mr. Chairman, we have enough projects in here that.
Well, I think the 3 projects that pointing out here total like 35,000, somewhere in that range. And the way I look at it, we need 523,000 to keep the 2/3 mark. So I guess we're looking for a motion to approve the Hobson Road, South Run Wet Well, and the Oaks pump station number 2 elimination. So we can get a motion to approve them and accept this grant money.
Any questions though?
Do you guys have any questions, Fred? Brent, any questions?
No, I think I clearly understand it. Do you want me to make that motion?
Sure. I don't think there's any other discussion that needs to be taking place here. So, yeah, we'll look for a motion for those 3 projects.
I'll make a motion to go out of those 3 projects for the grant money.
Okay, we have a motion.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved.
Thank you. Then, if there's anything to be signed today, or if that's needed for the grant itself, or if that's
All electronic.
Is that what the guy was sending us?
Not sure, it might have been, but yeah, I'll follow up what's necessary right away.
Yeah. If you need me to come up here and sign or whatever.
And if the board wants, I can start pulling together engineering scope proposals for the design phase of this.
I think that's, yeah, the next step, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, ARPA.
So grant money coming through the county. The county did have a meeting, before last meeting, but, they announced the money that they were giving to the county entities, not the municipalities. So we're still waiting on word for that, to see if the authority was open to ARPA money for the strat extension. So I'll leave that until we hear something.
Okay. Any other old business under sanitary sewer? Old business under stormwater.
Just wanted to let you know that DEP, I2 Capital, and the township are working on yet another meeting date for the PRP, the pollution reduction plan. So it is still moving forward in progress. So we're in a better situation than we were last year. Hear from something?
The sign that's gonna be installed at that project is almost ready to be installed. So a little educational piece as part of that
What the
project.
yeah. Any other old business under stormwater? New business, sanitary sewer, city flow monitoring project.
So there will be a meeting between the city, township staff, and HRG, I believe it's March 5th, to review the capacity evaluation memo. They've been doing that and have developed a list of questions. To notice the ownership of the interceptor, status of ownership of capacity within the existing pipes, amongst other items there within the memo about groundwater infiltration and other items there.
Sounds good. Capacity study in the area of Rockville and Route 30.
The
What you got here, right?
So, Burnmore Homes is proposing the redevelopment of various parcels at the Rockville outlets. And they've submitted a food capacity request. Currently that totals 495 EDUs of capacity, for parcel 2 and parcel 5. Part of the redevelopment. Township records indicate that there's 128 EDUs of capacity currently available for what's being redeveloped. And basically that gives them enough for what they need for parcel 2 to move forward with that. But based upon that, there's an additional 367 EDUs of capacity beyond that that's still needed. And in order to determine if there's capacity exists within the existing sanitary sewer system, a flow metering effort is needed to determine existing flows in there, as well as a sewer system capacity study of that area is needed. Conversations with township staff, it was determined the authority should complete a flow monitoring effort and then ask the developer to complete the sanitary sewer system capacity study using the flows that the authority will provide to them based upon the existing system. So what I have on the table here, there's copies of it in the engineer's report, the exact same map. For those on Zoom there is an exhibit that was pulled together of the existing sewer system. So the area that's in red, you can see is the proposed redevelopment parcel there at Rockdale. And the sewer line that's highlighted in yellow is the path of flow for how sewer gets from that parcel down to the interceptor itself. So all the way down at manhole F50 is where the ties into the interceptor. And the interceptor is a 27-inch pipe at that point of connection. It then upsizes to 30-inch. And then it continues to work its way down all the way to fertility. And by the time it gets down, some point it transitions into 36-inch diameter, and it's 36-inch all the way down to fertility. But this pipe here in Route 30 is 8 inches. And then once it leaves Route 30 and comes back, I believe it upsizes to 10, 12, 15-inch diameter. But that 8-inch pipe in Route 30 has a 6-inch diameter low pressure sewer line dumping into it already. And then there's other flow from developments on both sides of 30 that come into that line as well. You have Rockvale development. Sorry, that's not Rockvale. Mill Creek Square, sorry. Rockvale comes in here, but Mill Creek Square also comes in and ties in as well back here. It comes into these lines. So general rule of thumb is 8-inch line can handle up to roughly about 250 EDUs on average. And they're asking for 367, already at 128. So unless these pipes have a great slope on them, which allows increased capacity, we think there's issues with the capacity of that system, but we want to determine what the actual flows are in it so that we can then be used to determine how much the pipes there can handle, and if there's any upgrades, what those would need to be. And in order to do that, we're looking at a flow metering effort to install temporary flow meters at various locations so that we can determine sources of flow, like how much is coming in basically upstream of their first connection, which would handle all the low pressure from the eastern part of the township, as well as some of these developments. How much flow is currently coming down Rockvale? Do any of these pipes need to be upsized as part of that? And then how much flows within the various portions of this interceptor here? And would there be any improvements there as well? So I obtained pricing from 3 different flow metering companies, ADS Flow Assessment and Northeast Technical Sales, and gave them all the same information. We're basically looking for 6 flow meters is what we anticipate right now. One temporary rain gauge, and we were looking at a 6-month duration for proposal purposes. The thought would be we get the flow meters installed here, in the next month or so, and we have a period of time that goes into the summer, so we get tour season as well to see if there's any difference in the flows between now and springtime with tour season, because we want to look at what the maximum flow getting into the system is. We need to be able to handle that maximum flow. All 3 companies came back with roughly the same range of pricing, and that's $60,000 to $63,000 in cost just for their efforts for this purpose. That proposal does assume that traffic control will be provided by the township. However, in talking with township staff, because of the length of time needed to install this equipment, which is 1 to 2 hours at each location, that's going to require a different traffic control setup than just opening the manhole and look at it for a couple of hours, which is more than the township wants to handle around 30, especially because these companies may need to be getting into these manholes every 2 weeks to download data. So the discussion was to have this company and whoever selected engage with like a third-party traffic provider, like Flagler direction of traffic, whoever, to provide that service from when they need to go.
So that's gonna increase that $60,000 to $63,000 cost. Probably another 20,000, 30,000. If they're gonna do it every 2 weeks, did you say?
Yeah.
Well, we're set up 2 hours. Think we don't know how long we need to get in for.
But still, to have them come out, and set up and I don't know the cost of stuff like that, but I mean, I do know that it can't be cheap. Is the contractor at all held responsible for these studies, or
Contractor,
the Rockville, Fenmore, or whatever it is?
Is this developer paid, or are you saying we are gonna pay for this?
What I'm asking.
Yeah, staff suggestion is that the sewer authority do this part essentially to control the data and make sure that everybody agrees on the facts of the situation. And then having them do the analysis, that we can review their analysis and agree or disagree with the way they analyze it, but we'd have a set of facts that the authority can feel are correct.
But why would the authority pay for this?
So that you control the facts.
Is there any way then down the road when they have to
Why
pay?
wouldn't this be just the same as any other developer fee that if they want to develop it? If we don't have the capacity, I heard stated an 8-inch line is good for 250 EDUs. Isn't that what I heard?
that's general rule of
Okay, so if I heard that and you're talking about 495, we don't have the capacity. So if the developer wants to pay for a study to prove that we do have the capacity, but obviously we don't have the capacity.
One of the things that in a sewage planning module, you have to fill out is what is the existing flows in these pipes. And I think that's something right now that we could estimate that based upon number of connections, but we don't know how true that number is. This also would provide that information as well.
So you're saying like Willow Acres, that development that's coming into these lines, this 8-inch line,
Yeah, the force main coming in from further up, dumping into that line.
yeah, coming from, what did you call it, the next development up there, where Red Robin is and stuff,
No Creek Square.
that's coming,
And that, I think where Mill Creek Square comes in, I think that's where it increases in size.
but I'm with Fred. I mean, I'm not sure why, we should be held responsible for what could be $100,000 project. I mean, when you add in the traffic control and everything else, I mean, from 63 to,
Wouldn't you just say that if that interceptor line down through needs to be increased in size, wouldn't that be the cost to the developer?
That would be.
That would be pretty study.
Why wouldn't the study also be the cost of the developer?
A portion of it would be, what we're talking about is gathering the information that would be used to do the study. As being the authorities.
Well, let them gather the information.
I think Fred,
Are you saying you want to control the facts, so you're making the assumption that you're not going to get the facts from the developer or whoever the agency is that they use to collect the data?
I'm not going to impugn anybody, but I do think that having the authority and control of that information is a better arrangement.
I'm sorry, Ralph, I don't clearly understand you. I hear Rick really fine, but I think when you're sitting out in the audience, I don't hear you clearly. Maybe Rick, are you closer to a microphone?
Yes,
Okay.
I'll try to direct them. What I said was that I didn't want to impugn anybody, but I do think that the authority having control would be a better arrangement.
I mean, I guess some of the thought is if they can get these apartments built and stuff like that, I mean, the township's gonna, benefit from it down the road. I mean, I guess my thought was, is there any way, I mean, I know every time this comes up, but I mean, what we charge for an EDU or anything like that, I mean, we were talking 367 other EDUs. I mean, can we?
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a study process that you have to go through in order to determine what your connection fee is. That would apply, to all future connections after that, not just one development. We haven't done that in a while, but that's a whole nother.
It is also the 495 EDUs. How many of them are residential EDUs? These new EDUs, are they all residential?
Yes.
There.
Okay. My common sense would tell me when Rockvale was in its heyday, and on Saturday afternoons when they had hundreds of buses going through there, and then public restrooms were absolutely a horror show. You had so much sewage flowing down those, so I don't care how many EDUs it was in a very short amount of time. That stuff must, or was there a problem back then on Saturdays? That's a lot different than a residential EDU.
Yes, it is.
I'm just shocked that we only had 128 EDUs on the Rockvale property.
Well, that 128, to my knowledge, is just the portion that is being redeveloped. So there are other EDUs there that are associated with the portions of Rockville that are remaining.
Yeah, this is why we need to figure out what the current flows are.
But those current
I
flows,
still don't understand why that's not the developer's expense. Because if you're just saying we don't have the capacity, we don't have the capacity.
we're, how much?
Why wouldn't the developer pay for a study?
Again, we're talking about portion of the analysis that needs to be done. Not the entire analysis. We would have the developer do the other portion. But I understand the perspective, and we could approach it that way. At the end of it, when they come in with their solution, I think there'll be questions. There'll be things that we may not feel as confident about.
So for that 6-month duration, we're looking to collect data at 5-minute intervals to be able to make sure that we capture the peak flows that are occurring during that time period. Understand the flows that are coming down that pipe because of the variation in the flows of the low pressure system. Depends on how many pumps are running at one time. You have very little flow to a lot of flow from that aspect. As well as just your normal diurnal flows as well for the rest of the system going into that.
Other than flow, are we concerned about the pipe at all from that junction point down?
So in Route 30, that sewer main there was lined and manholes were either replaced or lined as part of the improvement project from like 2015-ish era. Going behind Once you get off Route 30 and it goes behind Target and such back there, I think there was a pipe collapse that a section of pipe was replaced. But I'm not sure about the condition of the remainder of those outside of that collapse.
I think there was a couple of ones that were replaced and manholes were lined with another project that we did. We did, when the authority did like 30 some manholes. So there are a few lines that were replaced, and I think they were the 10 back.
When the sewer pipe collapsed that was north of American Music Theater, how many feet of pipe was replaced in that, or was that just a small piece?
Footage wise, I saw 2, maybe 3 runs, so 800-900 feet maybe. I can't answer for sure, but it went from the sidewalk at Route 30 down at least 2 manholes. And that was changed over to PVC then.
It didn't get all the way to Mill Creek though. To the intersection.
The collection of this data will also have some other benefits for the authority. If we utilize ADS, they have a program, it's called Slicer, which analyzes the collected flow data and breaks out. It analyzes flow data with data from your rain gauges and determines when there's dry weather periods of time versus wet weather. And we'll be able to break out how much I&I is getting into the system. So I've used that elsewhere. And can provide some information to the authority to say, hey, we got a tight system, or hey, there's some I&I getting into here. We should look at addressing this in the future. Or
We'll give you for future development.
not as a future development, but for if you're seeing I&I, it may be something to say, hey, we need to look and say, what's the sources of it? Leaking pipes, is it sump pumps or other things, or just areas to investigate if needed?
Did you use it for your chapter 94 report somewhere?
You can claim it as work that's being done that the authority is doing in the system.
But the bottom line is, if there was not a development going in that required additional DDUs, we wouldn't be spending this $60,000. Right?
It does 60,000.
Yes, it's true.
Pretty simple in my mind.
Okay, we'll go back to the developer and approach it that way. If that's the authority's wish.
If
Well,
we
that's
don't
what
have
I'm
the
seeing.
capacity, we don't have the capacity, but I don't understand why we're spending $60,000. If there wasn't going to be a development, or if they were going to develop something and stay within the 128 EDUs that they already own, we wouldn't be spending it. So why are we spending $60,000?
That's where I see it too. I really do. I don't see the cost put on the township when it's gonna benefit the developer.
Exactly, or they can develop it and stay within the 128 EDUs that they have.
What do you think, Vinny?
I think what Hutch is trying to say is that the data that we collect from this project will be able to help us analyze if there is going to be any other future development out in that area, that whether this pipe is going to handle it or not. I think according to the statistics, it might not handle it, but I think if we're looking for future redevelopment or growth or something, then we should know as a township, as an authority, that whether this pipe's condition what it is and also whether it can handle it or not. And why not approach the developer and say, maybe if he wants to share a cost in that and go maybe half and half or something
So
possible.
the first phase would be identifying the flows, which is what the flow meter would do. The second phase, which would be the develop, which was discussed, was the developer's cost, working with their engineer, going out, surveying the system, determining elevations, pipe sizes, developing a model that says this is the capacity of each section of pipe, and then inputting the flow data. The concept was inputting the flow data we provide into that, along with their proposed development, to say, here's what the system, this current system can handle. And if it can't handle it, identifying improvements that would be needed to the system to be able to handle it.
What about, can we analyze it from the standpoint that they're approved for 128 EDUs, and then the additional EDUs, what will that equate to cost-wise that we would get as a township for the connections or for the additional EDUs? Well, how much would that add up to be about?
Oh, it's 367, it's $2,600 or whatever, 27
$650 per EDU.
per EDU.
You're talking 367, so what's that? What did the number on that?
972,550.
How much was the?
972,550.
Would that pay for our study for 63,000 if you're getting that much money?
I guess it would, but I'm again,
But if you don't know if the developer's gonna go through and ever buy the EDUs or not. Development is about all risk. I want to hear from our developer, Brent. You ever had to pay for extra sewer lines?
Yes. And studies, yeah. Well, does the first phase study cover more than the area that they're looking to develop? In other words, does this study gather us more data than what the area looking at being developed is? Or is it just, or is the study just limited to the area that's looking to be developed?
This study was at the line that Rockville ties into, and the flow in that line from Rockville's point of connection down to the Mill Creek Interceptor.
And why wouldn't you approach it to say, okay, Matt, as our engineer, if there was a development that was going to add 367 EDUs, or 495 EDUs is what it needs, what size should that pipe be from the point that it hits the intercept, the 30-inch, 27-inch interceptor, and you had to engineer that design, what would you be starting out with, size-wise?
but there's all those other, like,
If it was 495 EDUs by itself, that's one thing, but we have all these connections. And the wild card of how much flow is coming out of that low pressure system. We can estimate based upon typical residential diurnal curves, the gravity portion, but that 6-inch low pressure line, I'm not sure.
and that's coming from Bronx or Soudersburg, or they coming in. I mean, like, again, I go back to the Willow Acres development. I mean, I don't know how many houses are in there, but it's a couple hundred.
Right.
It's coming into there. Then you have, the Target development. You got the again, I can't think what the name of it is. Mill Creek Square development company. That you got the development across from Whitmer Road. That older development's in there. I mean, there's a lot other things that would be going into that line besides the new EDUs.
That's why we have these 6 flow meters, because we're trying to capture flows coming through various sections.
Right, but back to what Fred was saying earlier, and I agree with that, is, I mean, if they weren't proposing to increase all this flow, we wouldn't be doing this study.
Do we have on our drawings what the size of the pipe is at manhole F386? Or F385?
I have it on this drawing, but there's other ones that show it. Maybe these down here. It shows gravel green.
Oh, that does show you what size it is.
Not general, just I think it's more than 10 to 15-inch diameter size. If I remember correctly.
Yeah, this one might. I don't think anything.
And by the time it gets to F393, does it decrease at all?
Yeah, Vinny's drawing here is shown as a 12-inch.
Okay. What's it at F393?
I don't know, it could be 12-inch, could be 10-inch.
And how about at F459?
That's all in that area there.
I'm sorry, what?
8-inch,
Okay.
and then the
That's
other.
your main, so that's your main choke point. You're going down to 8-inch for a couple hundred yards.
The other area is right before it ties into Mill Creek. There is, well, actually, it's under Mill Creek. There's a siphon in that section as well.
And what's that siphon good for? I mean,
Uh,
size-wise.
Size-wise, I think it's an 8-inch pipe and a 6-inch pipe. I think
Is that going to be the main restrictor?
could be as well. But that may need to be upsized as well. Which would be what we're asking the developer through their work with their engineer to, determine what those capacities are. And
Okay, so if you do this study, you may end up re-engineering that pipe the whole way from F50, the whole way back, correct? F50, the siphon.
potentially, or there could be capacity in the 12-inch line for certain sections, because an 8-inch line or whatever size pipe laid at a flat slope has less capacity than a same size pipe laid at a pretty good slope going down a hill. So
Right.
if there's a good change in grade, there may be sections there that are okay. And that was some of the stuff we had to do with the Devon Creek development. There were certain runs that needed to be upsized.
Well, I know that geography pretty good, and it's pretty flat the whole way down through there.
Correct, yep.
I still go to saying I'm not for spending money for a developer. This is their normal business. They want to know, they would want to know whether they're going to have to replace all that sewer line to get their capacity. It's part of their due diligence. It's part of how they figure it out.
All we're talking about is I'm talking about doing their analysis.
I'm sorry, Ralph, I still can't hear you. It's just the way the microphone is, you're not coming through very well.
What we're talking about is giving them data, talking about doing their analysis.
And I say if they need, if, you know, our simple reply is we don't have the capacity. You're going to have to do this study to find out what needs to be done.
That's fine. If that's the authority's preference. That's how we'll approach it.
I don't think a developer's gonna walk away from even a $90,000 cost. You know, I mean, they're into Rockville Square for whatever they're into them for. They're not gonna walk away from a project for $90,000.
We weren't trying to suggest that they would.
No. I don't, that's just. I mean, the only thing is, you know, why would they not understand that this is, you know, just part of doing business? But. Yeah, I think I'm with Fred on this. I think it. You know, we gotta let the developer know that this is what the costs are gonna be to do this study. Anything else about this project? Okay, Willow Road box culvert.
You want me to start on this?
Yeah.
Start on John.
So there's, if you're familiar with Greenfield North, Tara has it up on the screen there. There's a tributary to Stauffer Run that flows underneath Willow Road, and there's a culvert underneath Willow Road that carries that flow. The Greenfield North development is happening on both sides of that tributary in the southwest side of Willow Road. The apartment complex there where Tara's pointing, and the industrial buildings where she's pointing now. Hopefully Fred can hear me. I moved closer to the microphone. Township had an inspection done of that culvert to determine its condition and what, if any, maintenance or replacement needs it had. But in addition, as part of looking at the two developments, there's a desire to extend the length of that culvert farther southwest so that a walkway can be constructed over top of it to connect these two sides of Greenfield North development. So that inspection suggested that there was about $50,000 of maintenance costs needed to maintain the existing culvert. But in order to replace it, we've engaged HRG to do design work on behalf of the township to replace that culvert and extend it so that it can accommodate walkway on that side to connect along Willow Road. It is a stormwater facility that we're talking about, this culvert. And
It should have went under stormwater. I apologize. I had it under sanitary, but it should have went under stormwater.
so,
Okay, so is there water running there all the time, or is that dry up? Is it really only stormwater?
no, it runs constantly.
So isn't that a stream? Why is that stormwater?
Well, it collects, in addition to the normal flow during dry times, there's additional flows during storm times.
Okay, I guess I'm just raising the question, what is the difference between streams and bridges and stormwater and culverts? When's that road and when's that storm sewer, I guess, is there a definition?
Well, a bridge would be anything that's longer than 20 feet in length to carry the road over whatever you're going over.
Okay.
So less than that, it's not a bridge.
So anything under that falls under stormwater.
Well, I don't know that they're necessarily related. If there's stormwater being carried by whatever the facility is, then it can be a stormwater facility.
Well, all creeks carry stormwater.
Agreed.
So all streams carry stormwater. I'm curious what the definition, where does it start and where does it stop? Is there a written definition, or where do you go to that?
I'm not sure what you want us to define.
I guess, why is it in front of the stormwater is what I'm asking. Why is this in front of the stormwater authority? I just am surprised that that's our jurisdiction under something that water is flowing through it all the time. And maybe I misunderstood what the stormwater authority, where it starts and stops.
But any facility where stormwater is directed into it is a part of the stormwater system. So there's stormwater off of Willow Road that's directed into this tributary. And that makes this culvert part of your stormwater system.
So is there actually box culverts and drain pickups on Willow Road and they dump into this?
No, it's just it's sheet
So you're
flow.
just saying it's normal road runoff,
It's sheet flow and swales that
sheet flow and water into there. Okay. Yeah, I just didn't realize we had that responsibility over running water. But if we do, okay, I just didn't understand it that way.
So I guess the rest of this story is that we'd like the authority to share in that cost to replace this culvert and extend it. And I guess you knew that's what we were getting to, but that's what we were getting to.
Huh.
We also expect High to share in that cost.
Well, it makes sense if you're going to make it longer. I mean, they should share in that cost. If there's definitely repairs and maintenance, then I guess that's the cost that the stormwater has to bear. I get that completely.
Right, and that's why I mentioned the inspection that was done that estimated about $40,000 to $50,000 worth of maintenance needs that exist right now.
Uh-huh.
So our thought was,
would the stormwater authority be on the hook for more than the maintenance though, or is it just the maintenance?
I think for me, that's sort of the starting point of the discussion, and it may be the ending point as well.
Why would we do more than the maintenance then?
That's certainly up to you to decide as the
Or is
authority.
there a township benefit or something out of it, or?
Sure. Replacing the culvert gives us a new facility that'll last a lot longer. And the road conditions at that facility are not good today, so there'll be improvement to that condition. And then, working with the developer, we'll have a continuous useful pathway alongside the road.
So are you saying like the difference is between the maintenance of 50,000 and then the total replacement is the other option? Is that?
Well, we're gonna totally replace it. That is the project, is to replace it.
And that's the $50,000.
No, the total replacement's gonna be, what did we estimate? It's in the 600 and some $1,000 range of cost.
Does it benefit us with this MS4 in any way, this restoration of the stream or anything like that during that project? Or can we get credits for it or anything?
No, I don't think so.
No.
So are you asking us for the 50 grand or are you asking us for more?
We're asking you to participate in a discussion about it. We don't know what the numbers are going to be yet. So we've started the engineering process to design and permit it. Then we'll get to construction and we'll have an idea of the costs altogether when we get to that point. So this is just sort of a heads up.
Would we normally do more than just the maintenance and repair? Is there any reason it fully has to be replaced except because of the development?
No, not really. It just that it didn't make any sense to us to spend $50,000 and then have it replaced shortly thereafter. So it made sense to go ahead and replace it now.
And then who would be bearing the cost of that replacement?
We're going to share it with High and the authority.
The Stormwater Authority and High.
And the
And the
township.
township.
Oh, and the township too. Okay. Well, yeah, obviously, if that's the description of stormwater, then we got some responsibility here.
Okay, well, we'll stay in touch. We'll keep you informed, and when we're at a point where we need you to make a decision, we'll ask you for a decision.
Any other new business under sanitary sewer?
Two other items. The first is the PennDOT project that's happening with the bridge replacement now on 30. HRG's approval in the PennDOT URMS electronic system expired on 2018. PennDOT said we need a new consultant approval of the authority. Included in the packet there, letter for the authority basically indicating HRG to consult for this project. The agreement isn't changing, that dates back to our previous agreement dating back to 2021. It would just be attached to it. It's basically just a letter that we can submit to PennDOT, but we can get authorization to get back in the URMS system.
Yeah, there's documents that have to get submitted through the engineering firm. Basically, I think you guys gave them permission before to access the website, and this, and be the consulting engineer for the authority. Like Matt said, 2021, I think, and it had a 3-year lifespan to it. But the programs or the culvert's dragging, so it expired, and they're just looking for another agreement.
So we're looking for a motion to approve HRG to continue to have some say in this project. It's an ongoing type of.
Correct, yeah, the design's done, the bidding, the project's bid through PennDOT. the construction work is incorporated into PennDOT's contract. I think it was hopefully we should start full reimbursement. Yeah. Correct.
Okay, looking for a motion to approve HRG as the engineering firm representing the township.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Number 2.
This is more just for board's information, the fertility pump station. A month or so ago, I guess at this point, the staff got the call to do some maintenance down there. And during that process, they discovered a lot of flushable wipes in the wet well, and a lot of needles. And it was reported to be like a packing bucket.
It took 2 days for 3 guys in full of flushable, supposedly flushable wipes, hypodermic needles. So we started looking at it.
So right now, wet well mixing system in there, they've changed the operation durations of that to see if increasing the frequency that runs would help basically with the flushable wipes and the needles that are in there. They're gonna put that through, I think, a 3-month trial basis to see how that works. And if it does, great. If not, there's discussion occurring. Is there a way that we can actually remove that from the wastewater so it doesn't accumulate in there? Worried about employee safety, like having to dig that out, especially with the needles down in that area. So that thought a screen to be placed prior to the water into the wet well to remove that debris from the system. But that screen now would go into basically a dumpster that would have to be currently it's working through the system. It goes down to the treatment plant where it's then screened and there and right over there. But that screen, just as a heads up, I mean, if you're looking at that system there, that's probably $1 million plus project type of system.
We're hoping the adjustments that we made, but we just don't know.
Yeah, you'd think we'd be able to just misdirect that to a holding tank or that it, you just scoop it out. You know what I mean? I don't know, but I'm not an engineer. Any other new business under sanitary sewer? Stormwater MS4 update.
Not at this time.
Any other new business under stormwater? Any other business? Motion to adjourn. So moved.
Okay.
Okay, thanks. Thanks for.
All right.
Thanks.
See you all. Take care.
See you, everybody.